In 1900, a popular American magazine called Ladies' Home Journal published an article called What May Happen in the Next 100 Years, making predictions about what life would be like in the year 2001. Read and discuss the predictions. People. People will be taller by 1 to 2 inches. This increase in height will be a result of better health due to improvements in medicine, sanitation, and diet. The average life expectancy will have risen from the current age of 35 to the age of 50. Language. There will be no C, X, or Q in the English alphabet, as these letters will have been determined to be unnecessary. Spelling by sound will have been adopted. English will have become a language of condensed words. English will also be more extensively spoken than any other language. Russian will rank second. Transportation. Cars will be cheaper than horses are today. Automobiles will have been substituted for every horse vehicle now known. A 1-pound motor in one of these vehicles will do the work of a pair of horses or more. There will be airships, but they will not successfully compete with cars and ships for passenger or freight traffic. They will be used mainly by the military. Traffic. There will be no traffic on the streets of large cities. All traffic, including subways, cars, and buses, will be either below ground or high above ground. Moving sidewalk stairways will connect them to the street level. The vehicles on the busy underground and overhead streets will have cushioned wheels. Therefore, there will be almost no noise in cities. Media. Photographs will be telegraphed from any distance. If there is an important event happening halfway around the world, photographs of the event will be published in newspapers an hour later. Deliveries. When people make purchases from stores, their purchases will be delivered by tubes, connected from the store to houses. These tubes will also collect, deliver, and transport mail over distances, perhaps for hundreds of miles. Communication. Wireless telephone circuits will span the world. A person in New York will easily be able to call someone in China.
Grandma, you've been lugging that book around all weekend.
If I want to read it, what choice do I have?
You can ditch the book and get an electronic book reader.
A what?
An electronic book reader. They're these great little devices that let you read books electronically. So you read on screen instead of on paper.
But I like reading on paper.
Trust me, Grandma. In a few years, no one is going to be reading books printed on paper anymore. Paper books will have disappeared.
I don't like all this new technology. I'm happy with things the way they are.
You really should check out ebook readers. One of the advantages is that you can buy, download, and start reading a book in minutes. Another great thing about it is that you can carry hundreds of books with you without it being heavy.
Why would I want to carry hundreds of books around with me?
Grandma, I'm sure if you just gave it a try, you'd find that you actually prefer it. Why not go with the flow?
I think this is all just a lot of hoopla. I've been reading my books on paper for 68 years, and I'm not about to change that now.
Since the early 17th century, newspapers have had the same general format. The news has been printed in ink on paper. Then the newspapers have been circulated to a particular area. However, the Internet brought great change to the newspaper industry. To stay competitive, it became important to have an online presence. Today, most major newspapers around the world have an online version of their print paper. Online newspapers present some important advantages. For example, they can present up-to-the-minute news instead of having to wait to print the next edition of the paper. An advantage to the reader is that most online news sources are free. However, it seems almost certain that there are further changes ahead for the way newspapers are presented and sold. Most people in the newspaper industry feel that the next step will be electronic newspapers. Electronic newspapers would use technology related to today's electronic book readers. Like these readers, e-newspapers would use e-ink. Like a computer screen, e-ink has the ability to instantly refresh and change images. However, e-ink uses paper instead of a computer screen, so e-ink images look more like the images in actual books and newspapers. The electronic newspaper will have the look and feel of a print newspaper in other ways as well. It will be as large as the typical print newspaper, with a lightweight, portable screen that is flexible enough to be rolled or folded like a newspaper. The e-newspaper will combine these advantages of print newspapers with the advantages of online media, such as constant and instant updates, interactivity, and video capability. Replacing print newspapers with the e-newspapers will mean that newspaper companies would no longer have the enormous costs of printing, manufacturing, and delivering newspapers. This will mean tremendous savings. One newspaper publisher predicts by 2030 we will have shifted to an electronic format and we will have stopped printing paper newspapers completely. When that day comes, newspapers are going to go back to being the most important source of news to the public.
One, the Internet brought great change to the newspaper industry. 2. To stay competitive, it soon became important to have an online presence. 3. Newspapers could present up-to-the-minute news instead of having to wait to print it. 4. The electronic newspaper reader will have the look and feel of a print newspaper. 5. It will have a portable screen that is flexible. 6. One newspaper publisher predicts, by 2030, we will have stopped printing paper newspapers completely.
An out-of-this-world vacation. Things that once seemed impossible often become commonplace with the passing of time. There are people predicting that this will happen with space tourism in the next decade or two. Some are even investing in and developing space tourism technology, believing that space tourism will be the next big thing. They imagine a future in which space travel will have become a reality for millions of ordinary people. At the moment, space tourism is only a possibility for the incredibly wealthy. In 2001, American multimillionaire Dennis Tito paid $20 million to become the first space tourist. After 8 months of rigorous training, Tito traveled aboard a Russian capsule that was launched by an American company called Space Adventures. He then spent 7 days aboard the International Space Station. Since then, a number of other millionaire space tourists of different nationalities have gone into space. Although up to now only very wealthy people have had the opportunity to be space tourists, many see this as the beginning of what will eventually become a lucrative new industry. There are several companies that have already invested millions of dollars in developing new, reusable launch vehicles. Their goal is to lower launch costs enough to make it possible for the average person to buy a ticket to space. The Japanese Rocket Society, for example, has set a target price of 1 million yen, about $10,000. Virgin Galactic, a British company owned by Richard Branson's Virgin Group, has been working on plans for sending people into space for years. The company is about to begin testing of their 8-seat spacecraft and expects that they will have worked out any problems by 2020. When the spacecraft is shown to be safe, Virgin Galactic will begin their flights. Although tickets are a steep £100,000, $160,000, amazingly, the first year of flights has already been booked. One of these future passengers is Lisa Ramirez, a mother of 3. When asked why she was prepared to spend so much money on a galactic flight, Ramirez explained, "I'm 58 years old, and by the time this happens, I will have been dreaming of going to space for at least 45 years. There are even companies working on plans to build hotels for space tourists. The Shimizu Corporation, a giant Japanese construction company, has detailed plans for a hotel they expect to complete by 2020. They believe that by then, they will have created a 63-room hotel which will orbit 279 miles, 450 kilometers, above the surface of Earth. The hotel will slowly spin in order to produce enough force to simulate Earth's gravity. It is estimated that such a space hotel would cost $6 to $12 billion and would take about 6 years to build. Since water was discovered on the moon in 1998, the multinational hotel chain, Hilton Hotels, has been working on plans for a hotel on the moon. The plans call for a 5,000-room complex with a beach, a working farm, a medical center, and even a school. 2 huge solar panels will generate the power. Hilton is working on this project with experts at NASA. You may wonder what space tourists will do while in space. To begin with, most will probably want to spend some time simply enjoying the incredible sight of Earth from space. After that, no doubt they will spend some time gazing at the amazingly bright stars and will take a spacewalk or two. When space tourists have had their fill of observing, they are likely to spend hours amusing themselves floating and doing acrobatics in the zero gravity of space. This zero gravity could provide endless recreational opportunities, including swimming in a zero gravity swimming pool in which people move through a floating mass of water. With so much research, energy, and money being poured into space tourism, it is clear that it is a matter of when, rather than if, space tourism will become a reality.